Howdy, folks. Welcome to Storytime. I'm Murph. And if you're watching this on premiere day, it's my birthday. It's my birthday. We're going to party. If you're not watching it on premiere day, well, it was my birthday. It was my birthday. And we're gonna party. Oh! Did you see that? It was like magic. Because things are magical here in the lands. All right. Well, let's get started. In this edition of Storytime, we're going to be listening to episode 12 of The Lands, which just so happens to be the last episode of Chapter 2, The Morning Report. Before we get started, let's recap a little bit about what's happened in the lands so far. Well, Prince Sean had spent the morning roaming around the kingdom looking for someone, which turned out was the professor, and turned out the professor was nowhere in the kingdom, so it was kind of a fruitless morning. But until he had his horse commandeered by Merle, who has this itching desire to get up to the chalet. What's that crazy old man up to, huh? Agent Clayton had his meeting with Ram and other men from the tribe. Where he's hoping that they're going to heed his advice to challenge Chief Isaacs. And meanwhile, Mara James has interrogated Running Chavez and Giggling Zamora, and that went nowhere for her. It was about as fruitless as Agent Clayton's interrogation of Princess Natalie. But we did get to see a little bit of Giggling Zamora's abilities. That was interesting. Captain Hobogon seems a little frazzled, doesn't he? He surveyed the wreckage of Princess Natalie's wagon, and he's starting to wonder that even with all his extensive training, did he fall for a trap? Was that young man that they found passed out in Hubland, was he part of a plan of some sort? That maybe is he working for Techland and they placed him there? I don't know. And on top of that, he left Queen Kwan with one soldier with that young man. So he might want to get back there and see what's going on. Well, the spirit tree, which we saw kind of explode way back in episode 2, Grimmer witnessed that happen when all those weird things were happening. And then Agent Clayton and General Nels really felt the need to go make sure that the old dead tree is still dead. Is it? I don't know. Maybe we'll find out in this episode. And way back in episode 1, you got to meet Gary, the archivist of the lands, and Jess Donner, the custodian of the lands. The custodian of the lands. What exactly does the custodian of the lands do? Well, why don't we listen to episode 12 and maybe we'll find out. Now remember that after the credits roll, to stick around to hear my concluding remarks. And we'll talk a little bit about this episode and maybe what's to come. So let's get to it. A 1 and a 2, and away we go. Welcome to the lands. Episode 12, Chapter 2, The Morning Report, Part 5. Our quote for this episode: "We must trust the process, as difficult as it may be." Sostene. Jess Donner was probably the most powerful person in all the lands. Just very few people knew it. He was an elderly man with thinning hair that he still kept neatly combed. He shuffled his feet down the dreary, poorly lit hallway, peering over his glasses at the large double doors he was approaching, all the while clutching tightly to a briefcase in his right hand. He had a very stern, serious look on his face, and in his head he was racing through all the happenings of the last couple of days. His job was not easy. In fact, it was quite difficult, but he had been doing it for as long as anyone could remember. And there was a couple of reasons. One, no one else wanted it, And 2, he would never let anyone else do it. He was the ultimate taskmaster. He was a strict, by-the-book enforcer of the rules and was not afraid to tell anyone that he or she was wrong. It really was his way or no way. Unfortunately, he had no real power. His job was to be an emissary of the Ancient Ones and to coordinate dialogue between the leaders of the lands, a near impossible task these days. But Jess Donner did it. His official title is the Custodian of the Lands, or just the Custodian for short. His nickname, however, was given to him many decades ago by Mad Dog, the Weasel. Candelabras lined the ceiling above his head, and perched in one of those candelabras was a black raven. Just as Jess Donner walked under it, the black raven let out a loud, scary caw! Jess Donner stopped and looked up at it. "Good morning, Anna," he said to it. "Did you sleep well?" "Caw!" "Well, you're lucky. I, on the other hand, did not." "Caw! Caw!" Anna said as she swooped down and came to rest on the custodian's shoulder. "Yes, I am getting much too old for this shit," he mumbled to his friend as he began to shuffle forwards towards the double doors. When he got to them, the double doors swung open and Jess entered a very dark room. The only thing visible in the room was a high-backed chair and a small table. On the table was a single lit candle and a large glass orb. Jess Donner approached the table and placed his briefcase on it. Anna jumped from his shoulder onto the back of the chair as he pulled it out and sat down. He removed a large book from his briefcase along with a pen. He opened the book and began writing in it. "Caw! Caw! I'm making the morning report, if you don't mind." "Caw! Well, as you slept, a lot has happened." "Caw!" Jess let a little smile form on his face. "Yes, I know you like your sleep." He reached up and pet Anna on the top of her head. "There are times I envy you." He stopped petting her and went back to writing. "Caw!" "Okay," Jess said in his sing-songy voice. "I have work to do, Anna. Contrary to what you believe, the lands do not revolve around you." He continued writing. Periodically there'd be a creak or a whisper, and every now and then a moan. But none of these sounds disturbed the custodian. He just kept on writing. Even when the orb in front of him flashed and the face of a woman appeared inside it, Jess Donner kept on writing. The bright white face stared at Jess Donner, the white hair on its head waving like there was a breeze inside the orb. "Jess Donner," it whispered, its voice with a sort of echo to it. Jess did not react. "Jess Donner," it said again, softly, and again Jess did not react. "Jess Donner!" the image in the orb yelled. This time Jess looked up from his book. "Yes, Esperanza," Jess Donner calmly answered. Esperanza smiled and said softly, "Whatever are you doing here?" "I'm recording the events of the day, Esperanza." "And quite a day it has been so far." "And it's only beginning," the custodian said, finally placing the pen down and looking at the face in the orb. "Things haven't worked out exactly as we hoped." "Are you saying you didn't wake up laughing this morning?" "You would need to sleep in order to wake up." "Are you saying you haven't been to bed?" "Jess Donner, you know how important it is for you to sleep. As the custodian of the lands, you need to be in tip-top shape. You've got your work cut out for you." "Caw!" "You see, even Anna agrees with me," Esperanza continued. "As the voice of the Ancient Ones, you need to be ready to go at a moment's notice." "Caw!" Jess Donner stared at the face in the orb. "I am also responsible for recording the events of the day," he said, looking over his glasses at Esperanza, "which I seem to be having a difficult time doing with all these interruptions." "Being tired and cranky is no way for you to operate." "Caw!" "Okay, let's not both gang up on me," Jess Donner said as he picked up the pen and began writing in the large book. "Let me finish this and I'll go get some sleep." Esperanza and Anna watched as the custodian went back to his work. Esperanza looked up at Anna and shook her head. "Jess Donner, what would the lands do without you?" "I don't know," he said slowly in his sing-songy voice. Merle approached the old chalet, which was all boarded up, but still in pretty good shape. He rode around to the front of it, and from there he could see the beauty of the kingdom, the shimmering castle, the canals where the little people and the fairies lived, the ponds and the stables, the homes and the entrances to the many kingdoms, all those things and more that made up the kingdom. "You really are a diverse kingdom, aren't you?" he said as he admired the land that was truly magical. But sadness came over him as he felt something was missing. Even though he knew something was happening, he was still sad at how it all was so different. He could see the big white mountain in the distance, a backdrop to the magical kingdom, which rose out of the deserted neutral lands and graced it with its beauty. A tear came to his eye as he examined it, and sensed that it was sad. He drew in a big sigh. He looked at the chalet. It seemed so small, especially in comparison with everything else in the kingdom. He rode right up to the front door, slowly lifted his hand and touched it. It had changed so much, went from being one of the most important to being one of the most dilapidated. It made Merle sad. He turned the horse and headed to behind the chalet and up another hill. He rode for a few minutes, up one small hill and down another, and up one and down another, till he got to an old dead tree. The tree was full of branches, but there were no leaves. It was bare as bare could be. There was a ring of dirt around the base of the trunk where the grass had all but disappeared. Surrounding the ring of dirt was dead grass. There seemed to be no life around it at all. Merle stopped. He put his head down and wept. Not too far from where Merle cried over the state of the spirit tree, deep in the Thunder Mountains, Croach stood, arms crossed, watching his men work the mine. He stood motionless, except for the occasional move of his jaw, a twitch that made it look like he was chewing gum. His beady eyes surveyed the men as they pounded, drilled, and blew up rocks deep within the mountain. Their job was to find whatever precious metals the mountain hid inside her. And it was all done for Gonzo. Croach was a no-nonsense guy. He was short but stocky, all muscle. His bald head looked as though it had been chiseled out of stone, and his eyes were cold as the water that ran through the mine. He was a man of few words, unless he was upset. The miners worked out of fear of upsetting him. He was ruthless and cutthroat, but he got the job done, and that made Gonzo happy. The men had been hammering rocks for a few hours now without a break. Croach wanted to get it done before the morning shift came in to drill some more. Some of the guys were beginning to grumble. They were tired and needed a break. Every now and then one of them would look over to Croach and give him a dirty look. Croach didn't care as long as they kept working. He had calculated it out. If they continued at the current pace, they would be done in less than an hour, and he intended to be done in less than an hour. Two of the longtime miners were beat. They just couldn't keep up the pace. They started grumbling to one another about being overworked and not appreciated. They were far enough away from Croach to know he couldn't hear them, but their actions spoke to Croach. He could tell they were getting upset. As they continued to grumble, others started following suit, and slowly they began to ease up on production. Croach could tell that little by little they were letting up. The hammer swings were not as intense, and were not as close together. Guys were starting to move slowly around the pile of rocks. If this continued, they would not be done in less than an hour. His calculations would be off, and he would not succeed. This was not acceptable. His twitch got worse. If he were closer to the guys, they would have noticed it. They would have seen how it looked like he was chewing gum, and they probably would have picked up the pace, afraid of getting him too upset. But they didn't see it, and he was getting upset. He watched them, trying to determine who the instigator was. They were slowing down. He could just feel it. Someone was poisoning them. Someone was going to pay. He got his answer. Finally, one of the older miners put his long-handled hammer down and took a deep breath. He flexed his hand, trying to work out the pain. Croach left his spot and walked over to the man. "Is there a problem?" he asked. He stood in front of the man, his arms still crossed, still jaw doing the twitch. "I'm sorry, sir, but I just can't keep up this pace." Croach stared at him, his eyes piercing the man's eyes. The man fought his gaze. He refused to look away. He was going to stand up to Croach. They all needed a break. "We need a break," the man said. "A break?" Coach looked around to all the other guys who were standing around, no longer working. "He says you need a break. Is this true?" The miners looked around at each other. From the back, someone yelled, "Yes!" and a couple of other guys agreed. Croach looked around at the group of men standing there, hammers in their hands and breathing heavily. His twitch was so bad it looked like he was eating. Hey, what's going on here?" yelled a man as he came through the crowd. It was Badge, Croach's assistant. He was a scrawny-looking man with a big smile. His thin face was framed by his long hair that was pulled back into a ponytail. His job was to act as a go-between, to keep the peace between Croach and just about everyone else in the lands. "Is there an issue here?" he said as he approached Croach and put his arm around him. Croach said nothing. "We need a break, Badge," the man said. "He's been working us way too hard." Others began to mumble. Badge looked at the guys, and he could tell that a powder keg was about to go off. The miners were beginning to close in on them. "Okay, well, I'm sure there's a good reason for that, right, Croach?" Croach said nothing. He was eyeballing every miner who stood around him. "Couldn't we give them a break? Huh? Is that possible, Croach?" Badge gave him a big smile. "Sure," Croach said. In an instant, he reached out to the man who had stopped working, grabbed his arm, and snapped his wrist. The man screamed. He then twisted the man's arm and brought his elbow down on it, breaking it between the wrist and the elbow. The man fell to the floor. "Does anyone else need a break?" Croach screamed. He walked towards the miners. "Who else needs a break right now?" The men scattered and started hammering the rocks. Croach started pacing around them, and Badge went to help the screaming man on the ground. "If this work is not done in 30 minutes, you all will be receiving your own breaks. You got it?" Croach screamed. "Yes, sir," some of the guys responded. "What was that? I didn't hear you." "Yes, sir," they all yelled. Croach paced around like a caged tiger. Every man he walked by was too afraid to make eye contact with him. He walked over to where Badge was with the injured man. "Badge, take care of this loser. Get him out of here." A couple of other miners came over and picked him up and carried him off. Croach folded his arms and stood there, watching him leave. "Croach, you've got to control that anger," Badge said, approaching him. "Badge, that wasn't anger," Croach answered, producing a sly smile. "That's called motivation." Badge looked at him and smiled a nervous smile. "Well, please, never try to motivate me." The men continued to hammer and were done in 20 minutes. Agent Clayton continued along the tracks. He was moving around the lagoon, which meant he was almost home. Not far up ahead was the train station for Techland. It wasn't much, not like the train station in Merchant Valley. It had a few benches and a covering, but not much else. Then again, unlike Merchant Valley, the Techland train station was in a nice area. You really didn't want to be indoors. It was surrounded by trees, and you could see the lagoon and the racetrack from it. Across the train tracks were the homes, all neatly lining the streets. Then there was a tunnel. Beyond the train station, the tracks were swallowed up by a tunnel that led through the hills and exited out in the Merchant Valley. As Agent Clayton came around the corner, he thought about how D.W., the train's engineer, would blow the train's whistle long and loud, announcing his arrival. It was now silent. He could see the tunnel, all closed off with boards and wire and fences and rope and caution tape. No one was going in, and more importantly, no one was coming out of that tunnel. It was quite secure. Standing at the train station was Mara James. Her arms were crossed, and she looked unhappy. "You are late," Mara James said to Agent Clayton. "You're rude," he quickly replied. He got down from Jules and patted her. "Go rest, Jules," he said, and she took off. "What's the morning report? Any luck with the tribal women?" he asked as they walked through the abandoned train station. "No. They didn't reveal anything. How was your meeting with the tribal team? They're a bunch of idiots. He used his ability to open a gate and they walked through it. Agent Clayton was a good 1.5 feet taller than Mara James, but she walked like she was just as tall. He stopped and looked down at her. How are the scouts doing? They're in place, she responded, and everything is progressing as planned. We should be sending a message today. It's only a matter of time before they accomplish their goals. We are successful where all others fail, he said. We do the will of the chairman, Mara James responded. They continued walking towards the tower, which served as Agent Clayton's office. At one time, it was all open and served as the load-unload area for the gondolas that ran between Techland and the kingdom. People would walk the pathway up the 3 stories. Not anymore. Now it was all closed off, with only a secret door leading into it. As they approached it, Agent Clayton waved his hand and a door appeared and opened. Only he could enter from here. All others would have to enter from the carousel building, which was right next to the tower. Mara James stopped before they entered the tower. Agent Clayton, question for you. You have my attention. Did you detect a decline in the spirit this morning? Agent Clayton remained silent for a few moments, then spoke. I did. Any theories? As I said, we are successful where all others fail. However, Mara James waited. She knew that he would continue if she didn't interrupt him. However, I felt something else this morning. And what might that be? Mara James asked, now very curious. I'm not sure. I would describe it as a stirring. He looked down at her. I even checked the old spirit tree just to make sure. Is it still dead? Yes, it's most definitely dead. Well, good, she said. Very good. Mara James looked up to Agent Clayton. Agent Clayton, how do you think the professor did it? He said nothing. How could he escape out from under us? How did we not see it coming? You've known him forever. How could you not detect it? It's a riddle, Mara James. Figure it out, Agent Clayton said sharply. She smiled and nodded. He obviously had help within, she said. Let me worry about that. You have your own work to do. It's time to send you on your way. Any idea where the director is? He's headed towards the lab. Then let's get the team and go there. It's time to belly up to the bar. Agent Clayton and Mara James entered the tower and the door disappeared. Jess Donner placed the pen on the table as he finished writing in the large logbook and closed the book gently. He returned it to the briefcase along with the pen, then placed both his hands on the table as he let out a big sigh. Anna, who was still perched on the back of the chair, opened her eyes. "Caw!" she exclaimed, causing Esperanza to appear in the glass orb. "Are you finally finished, Jess Donner?" she said loudly, the echo bouncing around the room. Okay, Jess Donner said quietly. There is no need for the two of you to be so pretentious. Anna flew off her perch as a breeze began to whip around the room. Jess just sat there, knowing that he was soon to be in the presence of an ancient one. Looks like we are about to get a visit, Esperanza commented. No sooner had she said this when a robed figure appeared next to the table. Esperanza turned and nodded to the figure. Hello, Amadeus. To what do we owe this visit? The custodian looked up to the ancient one, his hand still planted on the table. Amadeus seemed to be looking down to him, although you couldn't see its face under the hoods. Much seems to be happening, Amadeus said in a deep, distorted, and throaty voice. More than we thought would be. Jess Donner nodded. Yes, he said. It appears that everything seems to be happening all at once. I must summon the others, Amadeus said. The breeze in the room turned into a wind. Jess Donner continued to sit with his hands on the table as Anna cawed loudly overhead, trying to fly as the wind whirled her around. Finally, she swooped down and came to rest on Jess Donner's shoulder. As she landed, the 3 other ancient ones appeared. Such a predicament we are in, Minetta said as its robe, hemmed in a dark blue satin, fluttered in the wind.
Too much all at once. Menelaus, there is no use complaining about it, Amadeus said. We must deal with it. But what of the princess? Sosthene asked. Do we just allow Techland to keep her? This is the least of our concerns when it comes to Techland, Sosthene, Menelaus replied. Guys, Jess Donner said, shaking his head. What has happened has happened. The spirit has allowed it to do so. Our duty now is to just deal with it. The custodian is right, Bonfilius said. We have to allow the spirit to move forward. Give it time. It is very weak. A hush fell upon the room. Jess Donner looked into the orb and met the eyes of Esperanza. She smiled and nodded at him. Weak, but still here, Esperanza said. There was a murmur of agreement between the Ancient Ones. There seemed to be a scare for a moment, almost like it was disappearing, Amadeus said. The Ancient Ones nodded in agreement. But it did not, Bonfilius said. The spirit needs to be our focus, the custodian continued. All other things are secondary. Princess Natalie? Sosthene asked. The Orbitron? Menelaus asked. The professor? Amadeus asked. All secondary, Jess Donner said as he stood up. The spirit is the most important issue right now. All other things are secondary. If the spirit is to survive, we must allow for those things to play out. Let's see where the spirit is taking us, Amadeus commented. We must trust the process, stated Sosthene, as difficult as it may be. Anna took off flying, cawing as she did. Jess Donner sat down again and without hesitation removed the large book from the briefcase. I will make note of all that we talked about, he said. I feel confident that the future looks brighter for the lands. He looked up to all four of the Ancient Ones. The spirit is back. And I do not believe we are the only ones to notice either, Bonfilius said. Ancient Ones stood in silence. Then, one at a time, began to disappear. The last one was Bonfilius, who just floated there next to the custodian. Is there something else, Bonfilius? Much, Bonfilius said. You believe you know it all, custodian, but you do not. Jess Donner opened his book, turning the pages to find where he left off. Bonfilius hovered next to him, waiting for a reaction from Jess. There wasn't one. Jess began writing. Mouse is out and about, Bonfilius said, matter-of-fact-like. The custodian looked up at Bonfilius. Mouse? Yes, mouse. Bonfilius finally got the reaction he was looking for. And are you ready for this, custodian? Merle is also up and about. Jess Donner couldn't believe what he was hearing. Those were two entities that were considered dead. Jess didn't know what to say. Hard to believe, isn't it, custodian? Oh, very hard to believe, he replied, completely surprised by the information. Bonfilius moved in closer to Jess Donner. Then get ready for this, custodian. The spirit tree. Caw! Caw! Anna exclaimed. Jess Donner sat back in the chair. He took a deep breath, anticipating Bonfilius's next words. What of the spirit tree? Jess asked. Both Mouse and Merle are headed to the spirit tree, Bonfilius answered. Jess brought his right hand to his mouth, a tear forming in his eye. Caw! Anna exclaimed. Yes, Anna, Bonfilius answered. There may be life. I will go there and verify. But then I will continue with the plan. Bonfilius spun around and disappeared, then reappeared on the other side of Jess Donner. You have done good, Jess Donner, Bonfilius said. Credo. Bonfilius then disappeared for good. Caw! Caw! Okay, Jess said, wiping a tear from his eye. It doesn't mean anything until it is verified. Even then, it doesn't mean a thing until we succeed. Anna landed on his shoulder. Jess Donner reached up and pet her head. Then he went back to the large book and began to write in it. He looked at the orb and realized Esperanza was staring at him. You have something to say, Esperanza? You have done good, Jess Donner, she said, nodding her head. You done good. He'd had a good cry. He hadn't cried like that in a long time, and it felt good. To his surprise, Merle realized it had been a real long time since he really had any emotions at all. He hadn't laughed or cried or yelled or celebrated in so long that he even forgot what it felt like. Much like the flying elephants, those memories had gone away, but now they seemed to be able to find their way back, and he liked it. He sat on the horse, just staring at the ground, not sure what to do next, when he heard something. It wasn't anything loud, but it was something. There was some movement by the tree. He couldn't see it, but he could hear it. He moved the horse in closer, surveying up and down the tree, trying to find out where the noise was coming from. Then he heard it again. It was like a scratching, very soft and light. He was surprised that he could even hear it. There was a movement on one of the branches. He drew in a deep breath and put his hand to his mouth. There, scurrying on one of the branches, was Mouse. He came to a stop and stared at a twig that extended from the branch. He looked over at Merle, then back to the branch, indicating to Merle to watch. Merle moved in closer, staring at Mouse in the twig. The twig moved ever so slightly, then again. And, right before Mouse and Merle, a little leaf formed. Merle started to cry. Mouse moved in closer, almost as though he wanted to make sure what he was seeing was real. Squeak!
Yes, I can see it. It's beautiful.
Merle clapped his hands together and brought them to his mouth, tears flowing from his eyes. Squeak! Mouse spun and ran along the branch, down the tree and out across the field. Soon he was out of sight. Merle watched him go. He ran like he was being chased, but Merle knew what was happening. He had work to do. A breeze suddenly whipped around Merle. He recognized that breeze. He turned to see where the breeze was coming from. There, just a few feet behind him, stood an ancient one, robed from head to toe, hood over its head so as not to see its face. Merle was startled so much that he almost fell off the horse. Hello, Merle. The voice was rough and throaty. It could be considered scary, but since it was from an ancient one, it wasn't. Merle took a good look at the ancient one. Each ancient one wore the same thing, a black robe with the hood drawn up and over its head so as not to see its face. However, there was something that was different, something that allowed you to know exactly which ancient one you were dealing with. The hem at the bottom of the robe, around the cuffs, and outlining the hood was of a different material and color. It was a thin but shiny satin material. This ancient one's hem was dark forest green, which told Merle who he was talking to.
Bonfilius, it is good to see you.
The feeling is mutual, the hooded figure responded.
Something is happening, isn't it?
There was a pause. Although Merle couldn't see the face, he sensed that there was a little smile being hidden under that robe. Much, was all it said. The ancient one then pointed to the tree. Merle turned to see 2 more leaves had been born. He let out a hoot of joy and turned back, only to see that he was alone. He looked back to the tree, took in a deep breath, and held it as long as he could.
Oh, how I have missed you, my old friend.
The man sat below the statue in the darkness. At times there would be flashes of white light, almost like lightning was flashing all around him. There was still the ringing, but it wasn't as loud. He looked up at the statue of the man, pointing out towards somewhere. Each time there was a flash, the statue looked bigger and scarier. Is that the direction out of here? The young man asked. Trust the process, he heard whispered from somewhere around him. He looked around, but there was no one there. But when he looked down in front of him, he saw a mouse sitting there smiling at him. Trust the process, the whisper said again. Are you some sort of ventriloquist mouse or something? The mouse just stared at him while the breeze kicked up around him. With the flashing and the wind, should I expect rain next? He asked the mouse. The mouse shook its head no. Did you just answer my question? That was when the man realized he was surrounded by 4 figures wearing robes. He jumped to his feet when one of them spoke to him in a loud, booming voice. Trust the process! The man woke up suddenly and sat up in bed. He took a deep breath as he tried to remember what was happening and where he was. He looked around the nicely furnished small room he was in. He smiled. It's a cute little room, he said as he mimicked Queen Kwan. He stood up and looked over at the door. He went to it and grabbed the doorknob. To his surprise, it wasn't locked. Well, can't wait to see what's waiting for me on the other side, the young man said as he slowly turned the knob. Thank you for visiting the land. We hope you come visit us again soon.
So, it appears the young man has finally woke up. But is it for good? And is he ready to face the reality on the other side of that door? Are you ready to face that reality with him, huh? Well, you're going to have to wait until chapter 3 to find out what is on the other side of that door. What adventures are awaiting our young man? Episode 12 introduced you to some more citizens of the lands. You met Croach and Badge. Obviously, Croach needs to learn how to control his temper. With a boss like Croach, I'm sure Badge's job is not a very easy one. Do expect to see more of those two in Chapter 3. You met the Ancient Ones. They're the reasons why citizens, as in quotations, are they real? Are they ghosts? What the heck are they? They certainly seem concerned about what's going on in the lands. And it seems the old dead tree has finally woke up as well. The spirit tree is alive, at least for now. That scene with the spirit tree, Merle, Mouse, and Bonfilius, it's probably one of my favorite scenes. I know I teared up writing it. I tear up every time I read it. In fact, you might notice a little bit in that scene when I'm reading. I don't know, just something about it. Just Merle experiencing it, kind of coming back to life, and Mouse being there, and knowing that something is happening, and it appears to be something good. Can it maintain? Can it stay alive? We're going to have to wait and see, I guess. So you've heard all of the morning report. Chapter 2 is through. When you join us for Chapter 3, you're going to meet even more citizens of the lands for the first time. You'll learn more about the members of the tribe. You'll find out some of the other projects, fun projects that Techland is working on, huh? Prince Sean gets to spend some time with his father, King Michael, and finds out how fun that job really is. Young Joe and Kenneth will begin their adventure, and there'll be the return of some of our old favorites from Chapter 1. All this and more when you visit the lands again for Chapter 3, which is entitled Wake Up Laughing. Before we leave, I have something here from someone. Just a little surprise there. Happy birthday to me. It's a little message from Agent Clayton, our good friend Agent Clayton. Yeah, why would I talk to you? Right there, I proved it to you. I hope you're enjoying yourself in the lands, if you can even enjoy yourself. And if you are, I hope you're pressing like. Why aren't you pressing like? Are you a bully? Don't be a bully. If you like it, then subscribe to it too. Why don't you do that, huh? And be sure you turn on your notifications. If you don't like or if you do like, either way, I don't care. But you can leave comments. This guy cares. Anyways, you're an idiot. Just want to let you know that. And don't make me get the breakers out on you. Come back to the lands. Come back and visit. We'll see you again. Maybe. Jeez, why does that guy gotta be such a weirdo, huh? All he needed to say was, hey, if you like it, let us know. Subscribe if you want to visit again. And leave comments because we really are interested in what you think. All right? So do all those things and don't forget to make sure you can get notifications. Well, today, premiere day is my birthday, so I'm going to eat my birthday cake. And in the meantime, don't know when you'll be able to visit again. Might be a little bit. So between now and then, do all that you can to keep the spirit alive. I'll holler at you.